This week on The Breakout, we'll talk the new national security strategy.
And we finally have a defense budget.
Well, the NDAA isn't technically the budget.
Technically.
Welcome to The Breakout. I'm Mehta.
And I'm Lee Ferran.
Lee, so over the weekend we had the Reagan National Defense Forum.
Out in sunny California where we were not.
Where we were not. It was actually freezing here over the weekend. We have a video wrapping up kind of the top line there. I want to talk about something that was a big topic at the Reagan Forum, but actually came out a couple of days before.
Ahead of time. That's the national security strategy out of the White House. Now, from what I understand, that is a big picture, how the White House kind of looks at the world, but it's not the national defense strategy.
Yeah, so the way this has traditionally worked is the White House issues a national security strategy that gives top-line policy guidance where it wants its administration to be going on a foreign policy scale. Then the Pentagon does what's called the National Defense Strategy, which is more of a how will we execute the NSS. There's also often nuclear reviews about nuclear power and one about missile defense. We're not sure exactly what the status is, if those are actually happening or not now. But
cool. And we were waiting on the National Defense Strategy. We thought might come out during Reagan, but didn't happen.
Yeah.
But Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth did say, he endorses the broad vision of the White House's strategy.
Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the strategy. So because I think a lot of stuff caught people's attention.
Oh, yeah.
First thing is it expressly says the priority theater is Homeland defense.
And the Western Hemisphere, which is not much of a surprise considering the ongoing military operations against alleged drug smugglers in the Caribbean, military buildup in Venezuela, Golden Dome for the Homeland defense. This is really kind of putting in black and white a lot of the stuff the Trump administration has emphasized for a long time, including some thoughts about Europe.
Yeah, Europe certainly caught a lot of people's attention at the Reagan Forum. It pretty is antagonistic in some ways towards Europe. It says that there's a risk of civilizational erasure in Europe. It effectively says we're going to support right-wing movements in Europe that have been blocked by the EU.
Much friendlier to Russia than past.
Friendlier says a peace with Russia and a good relation with Russia is important to global stability. Also says expressly that the era of NATO expansion should be over. We didn't see things such as troop movements away from Europe. That's something that would come out in an NDS or force posture review. But the implication for anybody who's been worried about how Europe is going to be treated going forward, again, this puts it in black and white and
pretty
says,
stark, yeah.
This is our policy to Europe, and makes it clear that priority is Western Hemisphere, then Indo-Pacific, and then Europe is almost seen as more of a, again, an antagonistic relationship than a long-standing partnership.
In Hegseth, in his speech, he kind of endorsed the broad view of it and got pretty specific about what he thought were the realistic ways to approach this. Let's hear from him.
The War Department will not be distracted by democracy building, interventionism, undefined wars, regime change, climate change, woke moralizing, and feckless nation building. We will instead put our nation's practical, concrete interests first.
So you're hearing in just pretty stark black and white things you've heard from the administration before this, but this has come out in an official strategy, almost certainly to be reflected in the NDS as well.
Yeah, and obviously we'll have to see in the NDS if there's actual troop movements again to reflect this. But I think what you're seeing is the term he used, concrete. There's realism in some ways. You've seen a lot of criticisms already that this is kind of giving up on the idea of American exceptionalism, saying,
the
hey,
idealistic version.
Exactly, we're just going to be realistic. Again, not necessarily something that goes against what we've seen from the Trump administration to this point, just kind of codifying it. All right, so that's the national security strategy. We're going to go to a different acronym now. When we come back from the break, we'll talk about the National Defense Authorization Act.
My favorite.
At Leonardo DRS, our agility helps bring the ability to dominate in any scenario, on any platform, helping our warfighters accomplish the mission and get home safely. Leonardo DRS, our agility, your advantage.
All right, we're back. Lee, let's talk about the National Defense Authorization Act.
So much fun.
You love the NDAA. All right. So the compromise NDAA came out. What that means is that the House and the Senate got together, the leadership from the two authorizing committees, and said, okay, let's smash our versions together, come out with something that's joint. We can get everyone to vote on this. Top line to me is the top line.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So authorizers had asked for a little bit more money than what the Pentagon asked for. Appropriators asked for a lot more money. Basically, they came down to about $8 billion more.
$8 billion and more cash for the Pentagon.
Exactly. Yeah. So why did that happen? Well, Valencina, who's our congressional reporter, actually talked with Adam Smith, who's the top Dem on the HASC, about this on Saturday at the Reagan Forum. Let's hear what he had to say.
We are going to have a top line, but it will ultimately be dependent upon the appropriators, and as we all know, they have not yet determined the top line. So they will soon figure that out. We're going to put a marker out there that's like $8 billion above the president's budget. But we'll see. It'll depend on what the appropriators work out. Mostly we like to follow their money, but since they didn't put a number out there, we can't move our bill forward without having a number.
So yeah, $8 billion more, but as you heard, the appropriators have to sign on to this now.
Yeah, and this is the appropriators always like to remind the authorizers that they get to suggest dollar amounts, but ultimately the appropriators get to actually pick them. So we'll see. Again, the appropriators wanted a lot more money than the Pentagon did. This seems to me like likely a compromise that the appropriators will accept. I think that's why the authorizers picked that number.
Sure.
We'll have to see how that shakes out. The other thing that's important about this NDAA is what's not in there, and that's stuff not related to defense. Really.
Right. They seem to make this fairly focused, at least as far as NDAAs go.
Yeah, because the NDAA is considered a must-pass bill, and so sometimes you get a White House that says, hey, let's throw some riders on there because that's stuff we want to get through. There have been a push for a couple of things that were not related to defense from the White House, reportedly, over the last couple of days, but those ultimately did not get in. It looks like a fairly clean NDAA. I'm expecting it to get passed fairly easily sometime in the coming weeks.
And as far as what's in it, it's just a 3,000-page bill, so,
yeah,
we are
fine.
still kind of digging into it. Our reporters are pulling out the most newsy aspects. Go to breakingdefense.com. You'll find more info there.
Yeah. All right, so this is the last breakout of the year.
Can't believe it.
We're getting ready towards the holiday season. Maybe take a break, although it seems like there's always news that ends up happening. There's never a break.
No.
Thank you guys so much for watching. We're very thankful that over the first year of this show, we've built such an audience. We appreciate the feedback that we get from you guys. Make sure you're liking and subscribing to get the episodes when we come back in January delivered directly to you.
And you know what? Thank you the most to our podcast listeners.
We love
really
our podcast
unsung
listeners.
heroes of our audience.
I really honestly do love a lot of podcasts. Listen to so many podcasts. Thank you guys. I'm Aaron Mehta.
I'm Lee Ferran.
We'll see you next year.